Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Hello and welcome to episode 159 of the Heroic Investing Show. This is a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. We help individuals put in place a solid foundation that they can depend on, and more importantly, that their families can depend on, that enables them to focus on that unique genius of theirs, that service or product that they have been wanting to share with others, that people have told them forever, you are so amazing at this, you need to share it with the world. And they just haven't had the resources or the time to do it. Hopefully this will help individuals, and this episode is one that I think will help more than many others. I co-host this show with Jason Redman. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I could not be more proud than to have conducted this interview with Navy SEAL Lieutenant Jason Redman. And Jason wrote a book, The Trident, which maybe you have read. The tagline on that is the Forging and Reforging of a Navy SEAL Leader. And in that book, he talks about the challenges that he had in combat situations in Colombia, Peru, Afghanistan, and finally Iraq. And the title indicates that he had to be forged once and then reforged again. And, you know, as he explains in our interview here, the first challenge, and it's really well laid out in his book, first challenge was when he had to relearn, or finally for the first time learn, I guess, what it meant to be a true leader. And he's now sharing that with the world in his speaking tours and his books and in the service that he provides through all kinds of charitable organizations and simply just helping others. And now he's launching, in addition to his professional speaking, he's launching a personal coaching program. This guy is busy. And Jason, I guess anyone who has met Jay knows that he is a very inspiring individual. I think your time will be well spent on this interview. I want you to key in really closely on just the strength that Jay has. And when you listen to his story, think back at individuals you know that may need his help, that could very much benefit from that kind of service. You know, he provides so many different things, whether it's through charitable organizations, businesses that he's running, personal contact. He has a great, unique approach to how to be a well-rounded individual that can handle what we call life's ambushes. And he'll get into what that means. It's a great approach to think about what we do with those bumps in the road. Some of them are more than bumps in the road. They're massive. So without further ado, I know you're going to love this conversation, and it's a little bit on the longer side, so I don't want to hold up any longer. Please enjoy this conversation and this great advice from an incredible patriotic leader, Navy SEAL Jay Redman. If you haven't come across Jason Redman yet, Navy Lieutenant SEAL Jason Redman, who also did a bunch of Special Forces training and has an incredible story, you should do so. I think I haven't asked Jason this, but I think there ought to be a movie in the making here sometime. Incredibly inspiring individual. He's got a couple of companies out there where he's helping wounded warriors and where he's starting to help businesses take on the military warrior ethos. And so, Jason, thanks so much for joining us.
Gary, I'm honored to be on, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Jason, I'm going to let you drive today, I think. No doubt you can lead. You've demonstrated that. We're very much interested in, what you can tell the audience about how to, perform at a higher level, maybe with their own business, and then just how you can personally help.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll dive right in head first here. I mean, the first, you're right. Everything that I speak on, I am a voracious student of leadership, and that stems from both my background and being a leader and even in leadership failings. A lot of people that have not read my book and people who don't know me, all they hear is, hey, Jason Redman, he was a Navy SEAL leader. He's this guy that's done all these things. But if
Yeah.
they read my book, they find out that I'm a guy that failed at a pretty great level at one point.
Yep.
And now I speak so much on how to overcome those failures and how to be prepared for some of these things that come along in life. And that's really one of my core themes. So in leadership, I have 3 lessons of leadership. We'll come back full circle back to the financial side of things. But those 3 lessons are lead yourself, lead others, and lead always. Those are the 3 lessons that I try and encourage everybody to follow when it comes to leadership. And the pivotal, absolutely most critical component of those 3 rules is number 1. I have a ton of people who talk to me and say, hey, Jay, I'm in XYZ company, or I'm doing this, I'm on a sports team. I've got these team of individuals, or I've got these people underneath me, and we're trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z. How do I do it better? And the number 1 question I always ask them is, well, tell me how well you lead yourself, because that is the number 1 thing that's going to enable you to lead others, to have that balance, to have that structure, to have that path, if you will, because people want to follow a leader.
Right.
People want to follow a title. They don't want to follow a position. They want to follow somebody that truly sets the example. And that really is the epitome of this leadership by example mindset. When I get into self-leadership, I break it down into something called the Pentagon of Performance. And those are 5 key areas of your life that I tell people they need to apply time and effort to be a well-balanced leader and to be best equipped to encounter the situations that are going to come along in your life. And if you will, what I call them are life ambushes. So I survived a real world ambush, a real world enemy ambush in September of 2007. Very well executed ambush that, they did all they could to take out me and my team. And I was hit 8 times by enemy gunfire between my body armor and body. And what enabled me to survive that gunfight came down to those 5 points, those 5 areas, the Pentagon of Performance. So 1 was physical leadership, the kind of shape I was in, how I was prepared for that situation. 2 was mental leadership. Mentally, I was prepared. I developed a strong, resilient, overcome mindset. Number 3 was emotional leadership. So emotionally, I was ready. I was prepared, maybe not necessarily for being severely wounded, but really understanding how to navigate my emotions and how to manage this catastrophic event that had occurred. I talk to people about calm is contagious. And in a situation like that, in this overwhelming situation, it's important to be in charge of our emotions. And I talk to people about that. The 4th one is social leadership, how we manage our networks, the people around us, going out in rings, family, friends. Then it gets into our business relationships, and then it's the external relationships. And then the top one is spiritual leadership. So now that we've laid out all that groundwork, when we talk about preparing for a life ambush, let's come back to the beginning level, and that is physical leadership. It is the most fundamental lesson of your ability to lead yourself. And for most people, when I talk about physical leadership, I talk about how you take care of yourself physically. So that is nutrition, that is working out, that is your ability to manage this body, this vessel we live in. And most people don't take care of themselves. There is a growing number of people in America who are overweight, and they have very poor diets. Their sleep patterns are very poor. And the problem with that is, in this day and age, with everything we're trying to do, we know for a fact that if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not working out, if you don't have good nutrition, if you don't have good sleep habits, your energy levels are much lower. Not only that, you're not able to handle stress better. So right off the bat, you are at a disadvantage. So now let's take that a step further when we talk about physical leadership. What are the other things that we have, the tangible things? So one of those things would be money and how we manage our money. And money is probably one of the number 1 things that creates stress in individuals.
Yeah. I was just going to comment that it's, and this is just amazing. I was not about to cut in there. My only comment there would be this: really, it's an appetite just like anything else. I work with people all the time, and we look at their budgets, and it's really just about being able to control your appetite, right? And the other thing that I would comment is that, similar to your physical fitness, there are no shortcuts. Everyone thinks that, we can make diet sodas taste sweet and they're not going to hurt us, or we can, do artificial sweeteners and they're not going to hurt us. They do, right? There just are no shortcuts. You have to do the work to get the result.
Yep, absolutely. And it's no different with financial. It's no different than anything else you're preparing for. A lot of times I use the samurai as a great example of a very well-balanced warrior class, because they weren't just great fighters. They were balanced across the spectrum. So they studied a lot of history, and they were very well read. They were very educated, and they were very civil to each other. Civility was a very important part, relationships, family. They were just incredibly well balanced. And I think leadership and financial leadership is one of those areas that I would lump under physical leadership, one of those areas of the Pentagon of Performance. And the second component, it would dovetail into mental leadership, because one, educating yourself. So understanding how you put your money to work and how you set yourself up for that long-term plan, and doing the research necessary. For some people, maybe they want to invest their money into, real estate, or maybe it's in the stock market or things like that. But no matter what, you have a solid plan and you're continuing to educate yourself.
Yeah.
One of the concerns that I have, and I know there's going to be a lot of individuals who fall into this category that listen to this podcast, is being a retired military member with a disability from my injuries. I have a set retirement income that's coming in every month. I mean, it's amazing. But I tell you, one thing that I wonder about, and I told my wife, I said, we shouldn't necessarily count on this forever. As much as, we've earned it, there have been other instances where pension plans were stopped just because of a lack of funding. And we watched the direction the U.S. government is going, with the amount of programs that we're continuing to shell money out. I pray that I never lose my retirement and disability income. But at the same time, that pivotal question that I asked in the beginning, will you be ready? Being ready is preparing yourself for the unexpected. But we have a saying in the SEAL teams, it's plan for the worst and hope for the best. So that would definitely be a worst case scenario if I suddenly lost my retirement and disability income, from what I earned over a 21-year, pretty hard combat-laden career. But even though there's a small chance of that, in my opinion, if that suddenly happened, I would be to blame, because it's a consideration that I took into to tell myself, okay, what else are you doing to be ready for that? So, my wife and I are looking at other areas that we could invest in to pad, our savings and our financial future.
Yeah. Well, you're out there producing value for people, and you're getting an economy of exchange for it, meaning that you're getting money, which is just a receipt for the value you provided to other people. And I think that we have to be careful, because pensions can kind of be drugs too, right? For someone who is challenged every day because of the physical wounds that they received in battle, you were affected far worse than I was. I was never shot in my 30 years, and there are people who have far greater challenges even on a daily basis than you do. And for those individuals, and for you, that is a compensation for maybe something that you can't produce out in the real world today because of those impacts. But for a lot of us, we just kind of did our time and served honorably. But if we sit back on our heels as an incredible leader and don't use that, use the rest of our lives, we could retire in our 40s. And if we don't use our talents to the betterment of society, then you're right. You actually do it to yourself, because the only real thing I believe that will ever make us safe, financially safe in the future, no matter what comes our way, is our ability to go out there and add value. People are always going to listen to Jay Redman talk about how to help their company get better, and they're always ready for a dose of some enthusiasm and some inspiration to get moving better in their company. And so that's not going to go out of style, right? So that's what I try to do, is help other people. I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way. And you nailed it. Your ability to provide value, and not only that, your ability to have a purpose. We're really running into some issues in the wounded warrior community. On the bright side of things, we're probably taking care of our severely wounded warriors better than we ever have in the past. And a lot of these guys and gals with severe injuries, 100% disabilities, are getting out of the military, and they've got a decent income. I don't want to call it a great income. If you take your average middle enlisted infantryman and he medically retires due to his injuries, or she, they are bringing in, probably, if they're lucky, maybe $25,000 a year. The problem that happens though with them is a lot of them, they just want to sit on that. Like you said,
Right.
they don't want to get back out there. It's like, hey, I'm bringing in enough money to live on. But one of the big things we're seeing is they lack purpose.
Yeah.
And we're seeing massive levels of depression, massive levels of veteran suicides are on the rise. We saw a 10% increase in 9/11 veterans suicide last year. And I personally believe a lot of that has to do with purpose. I think human beings were built to have purpose, and creating value for someone else gives you purpose to be able to get out there and do something. It's one of the biggest things that I try and encourage them to do. We run a program called the Overcome Academy. It's a leadership program specifically for wounded warriors. And we try and teach them purpose and how to take the things that they like to do, whether, maybe it's fixing cars, or maybe it's computers, or maybe, it's whatever, and turning that into income, turning that into a job that now it becomes their new purpose. So now they're providing money for them and their family. They have a purpose, and they're not so dependent on this, this pension, if you will.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we're trying to encourage people to do. And as well as I do, that having balance in those areas, and, especially in the financial areas, gives you a little more peace of mind. And you're able to handle the stress of life, and you're able to handle other life ambushes that come along, as opposed to a financial one, especially if you're weak in the other areas.
Right. I mean, you could be the best guy on earth making, I don't know, I'm going to come up with something silly, but, left-handed fish hooks that are the best out there. But one, you may not recognize it. And two, you don't have the time or the finances to be able to master it so that you do become the best out there. And so having an underlying kind of passive income, our pensions, if you get 100% disability, the problem is, as you just mentioned, a lot of these guys are very junior when they have their accidents and get medically discharged. So they don't have a really high pension, even if it's 100%. And so they're a little bit challenged with that underlying, but it gives a little bit of a boost. And if you can give them or if our programs can give them the motivation to have the confidence to go do it, then I think it makes a huge difference. And you mentioned the mental and emotional when an ambush occurs. It's also important that house is in order. Those two houses are in order for how you recover from it, right? I mean, you have a great story about, your big orange piece of paper that you put on the outside of your hospital. I think it was orange, right? In your hospital room, saying, hey, don't come in with pity here, folks. It's not what I'm about, right? So you had, I think it took you a little while, but you got that in order. And I think it was probably because of the strength of your mental and emotional sides, before you got ambushed.
That's right. Except here's the funny thing. A lot of people always ask me, they say, oh man, being ambushed and what happened to you is probably the worst thing that happened to you. But the reality is it wasn't. Those who read my book, The Trident, the Forging and Reforging of a Navy SEAL Leader, the reason we selected that title, the Forging and Reforging, is my wounds were actually the reforging. I was broken twice. And the first time was a failure in leadership. And that was the original forging that I had to go through to really come to understand what it is to be an effective leader. And I wasn't prepared for that. I talk about how you've got to lead yourself, how you've got to have balance in these 5 areas. I didn't have them. I was way out of sync. I was not prepared. That fundamental question, will you be ready? I wasn't ready for it. And it almost destroyed my career. I was not mentally prepared. I definitely wasn't emotionally prepared. Because if I had been a little more emotionally prepared when that stuff happened, I could have taken a step back and looked at it and recognized reality and said, okay, these are some of the mistakes you made and people are trying to help you. Instead, I saw it as a personal attack and I fought back against it, against this hard constructive criticism I was receiving. The bottom line is going through that journey, a leadership failure, having individuals believe in me and say, hey, we're going to fix you if you're willing to fix yourself. And going through that journey, recognizing that as a leader, I needed to be strong physically. I needed to be stronger mentally. I needed to be much stronger emotionally. I needed to build better networks around myself, both the mentors that I could lean on, both my family, my friends, my work relationships, and then spiritually. All of that set me up for success when I was actually wounded in a life ambush. And that's one of the most pivotal things that I talk to people about, this idea, if you are balanced in these areas of your life, and financial balance is a component of this, because when these life ambushes happen, and here's, when I talk about a life ambush, let me clarify what that can be. A life ambush is a catastrophic event that will happen in your life that will forever leave a physical, mental, or emotional scar. Now, some of these can be at a lower level. And when I talk about a lower level, this one would have a huge financial impact. It would be the sudden, unexpected loss of your job. So here you are, you're a middle manager at a big company and you're doing well, you're making six figures and everything looks good. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, this company goes under and lays everybody off. I mean, that is a shock to the system. You got young kids, they're in school, you have payments, you have a mortgage. If you're not prepared for that, that could totally floor you. It could make it even worse if you're off balance in other areas of your life. If your health is poor, if you're mentally and emotionally not ready, you may not be in the viewpoint to suddenly shift gears and say, okay, where am I marketable? Am I marketable in the same area that I used to be working in? Or do I have to shift focus to a new area? Do I have to reinvent myself? The higher levels of life ambushes, start to get into life-threatening illness. Once again, something else that can create massive financial impact. It can be a severe accident. Once again, medical bills really add up. And then from there, it starts to get into the impact on other people around you. So, life-threatening illness to a family member. Could be, unfortunately, sometimes sexual trauma is definitely a life ambush. And then from there, it's the loss of a loved one. And one of the highest levels I've seen when it comes to life ambushes is the unexpected loss of a child. So these are the things that you have to prepare for. And with the vast majority of them, unfortunately, living in a world that relies upon the exchange of currency to make things happen, being financially balanced is a critical component, because if you are not ready, if you don't have, a couple months of income set aside, if you don't have money in savings, if you're not living within your means, when something comes along and a life ambush occurs, you're not going to be ready on a lot of levels. And,
right. It just adds to it, right? It adds to the other trauma that you're trying to deal with, and I think any parent who has adult children or grandchildren, and the grandchild comes down with cancer, for example, and their ability to drop everything, put their business on hold, or quit their job and go out and take care of that individual is a life-changing capability that they have. And when you're not able to do that, it's just going to stress you out. It's going to stress family out, could ruin relationships in lives. I mean, it's huge. I completely agree. And that's a very, very good point. I was thinking, really it's the mental and emotional that carry you through, right? And really because those two are what help you identify and pursue purpose, right? And it's having a reason to get up every day and not just collect the passive income that makes a huge difference in our lives. I think back to Dr. Viktor Frankl, right? It's the same thing that got him through the concentration camp, that got you through the hospital bed, and that gets all of these wounded warriors through their experience. And those that don't have the purpose, back to your comment, that a lot of times they just get kind of stuck. They're not really on the couch, but on the proverbial couch, collecting income and having a horrible mental attitude, not contributing to society. And
Gary, there's an exact point. It's funny, you talk about being on the couch. There's an exact point that I talk about when it comes to life ambushes, where people get stuck. And what's funny is it directly correlates with a real world ambush. So in a real world ambush, in this ambush that I was in, with very seasoned, very well experienced, it was the security element for the number one Al-Qaeda leader for the Anbar province of Iraq that we went after that night. And we walked into their ambush. And it was an incredibly well executed ambush. A enemy ambush, or any firefight laden ambush, is designed to totally overwhelm the individuals that are on the receiving end. They're in the kill zone. And the idea is to try and overwhelm them to the point that they cannot fight back, that the sheer volume of fire and chaos that's coming in at them causes them to just lay down and essentially die, to be perfectly honest. That point where those individuals are, where we call that the kill zone, where those individuals are in that area of fire, we call that the X. And the only way that you can survive a real world ambush is to get off the X. You have to fight your way out of it or blow through it, as we call it. And the funny thing is, life ambushes are no different. So many people in that moment, these events that occur are overwhelming to us. They're overwhelming just because of all the things that come along and impact us. And there's a natural tendency for some people, if they're not ready, to just sit there on the X, or like our wounded warriors who sit on the couch and they don't get out of their house. And I tell them, in order to succeed, in order to survive, you have to get off the X. And I don't care what it is in your life, whether it's financial, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, social, spiritual, I don't care what it is. If you have been involved in a life ambush and you're not getting out of it, so many people have a tendency to look back at what they lost and they focus on that. They focus on what is now gone. They don't look at the way to move forward, when the reality is they need to turn around and they need to look at, how do I move forward? How do I get off the X? So that's such a critical thing that I talk to people about when I do coaching, and whatever problem they have, I tell them, okay, we're going to come up with a plan. But the number one thing you're going to tell yourself when you find yourself stuck or feeling sorry for yourself or looking back is get off the X.
Yeah, that totally, change this horrible scenario and start making some improvement in some direction. Yeah, that is huge. I think we covered a lot of the social. What about the spiritual?
So the spiritual is our ability to get outside of ourselves. And for some people, it is religion. For me, I'm a religious guy. I'm a Christian. Not everybody believes that. And I don't fault anyone for that in any way. It's the higher level of our existence. But the bottom line is we need to step outside of me, because by stepping outside of ourselves, we start to have perspective on the bigger world around us. And one of the greatest things about perspective is you begin to recognize that whatever you're going through, somebody else out there has got it so much worse. Yeah. And you have the ability to change your environment. So by allowing time to focus on the spiritual level, whether it's meditation, whether it's breathing exercises, for some people it's yoga, for some people maybe it's giving back, it's going down and working in the soup kitchen or volunteering for another organization. But no matter what, you're stepping outside of yourself and you're starting to recognize that everybody's got problems and you have the ability to influence other people. And that's what I talk to people about. The night of my firefight, for me, it was a religious experience that helped me through that. For others, it's getting into that Zen mindfulness is what some people like to talk about. But no matter what, it gives you a little bit more peace of mind. It enables you to step outside of, for a lack of a better term, the pain and misery that you're in that ambush in the moment.
Yeah, and I would push that. That's so amazing. I would push people to take small steps on their journey to doing that. I mean, maybe going and doing 30 minutes of meditation a day and talking to a spiritual being that maybe you don't believe in yet. That may be too big of a step, but just doing like one very simple thing my son and I started doing a couple of years ago after a really good entrepreneurial retreat was to do a gratitude journal. I mean, that certainly is not breaking news, right? But just the concept of focusing on somebody else and then focusing on some positive things right before bed and sometime during the day when you're all wrapped up in things has a huge, huge impact. And, I don't want to oversimplify this, but you really can't be, how do I say this? You can't be feeling sorry for yourself and stuck in a rut and emotionally distraught if you're thinking of somebody else. I mean, it's just that simple. Like Mother Teresa and Jesus and Gandhi, they were very happy, content individuals because they just trained themselves not to think about them and their worries and their lack. And so it's really, woe is me is really hard to say and think when you're helping somebody else do something, so that's incredible guidance or advice.
Yeah, it's cathartic. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, that's one of the things that I quickly realized after I was wounded. I wanted to try and help other wounded warriors. And it's one of the things that I encourage people to do in coaching. I had a young lady that came to me recently in coaching, and she had laid out this path for her life. And she went to school, and just through a series of unfortunate events, the path that she had laid out, that she had been going after for probably almost 8 years of her life, crumbled and fell apart. And she did not have the ability to go down that path any longer. And she was devastated, absolutely devastated. I mean, that was a life ambush for her. And she did not know how to get off the X. And we talked a lot about how to get off the X. But one of the things I told her is, I want you to go volunteer for an organization. I want you to go volunteer and help. What did I talk to her about? Kids, underprivileged kids in a neighborhood. And that's exactly what she did. And by doing so, it made her realize all the opportunities she still had, instead of focusing so much on what she had lost.
Think about the power too with the impact on those kids when they saw somebody like her helping them, right? You know, they're feeling sorry about themselves and they see her helping them. That's just incredible. That's great advice. I want to just circle back here in our last couple minutes. You were talking about leadership, and I want you to just spend a couple minutes on, what your upcoming events are, what your upcoming kind of focus is, and then what you do for individuals with your coaching and how that might apply to some here, and just basically resources for the audience. One of the things I wanted to...
Absolutely. So obviously, I mean, you can find out just about everything about me through my website, jasonredman.com. Through there, you can get links to my social media. I put out a blog every other week, and then I have a podcast, the JR Overcome Show, that we put out every other week. So both of those drop on Thursday weekly. And then with coaching, my coaching link's right on the website. I'm offering 4 different levels of coaching right now. So one is just a 30-minute phone call. So obviously we can't get too in depth in there, but I have a form that I have people fill out ahead of time. Kind of lets me know where an individual is and what they're looking for. And then we have a quick phone call and basically talk you through that idea of getting off the X or whatever's going on in your life. Some of the other options I have are a hour session where we create a plan and I email you that plan. And then I have a month program where once a week we get on a call and we're going through our action plan. And then I have a 3-month plan. So that's what I've got set up right now. I've also got some of my products on my page. And, one of those things, you can buy my book, the Trident, Forging and Reforging. I don't sell unsigned copies of my book, so you get a signed copy. And it's an amazing story. My journey has been an incredible one. It's a story of leadership and failure and redemption, and it's a love story. It's a story of how my wife, that social network I had, was so strong and helped me through that. And then if you're interested in supporting Wounded Warriors, go to combatwoundedcoalition.org. That's our organization. And the Overcome Academy is our leadership program that we are doing for our Wounded Warriors. And then the last thing, if you're looking to bring me into your company, if you'd like me to come in and speak on leadership, on the Pentagon of Performance, on change pyramid, on how to lead yourself, how to overcome all, you can book me right through my website.
That's awesome. That was quite a list. You're a busy man.
Yeah.
And you might have to play that back there, team, and our audience, and get the details. But I mean, you can go right to his website and see some incredible stuff. I don't think you even mentioned Wounded Wear, which is just some awesome clothing that you're putting out there to give some inspiration to individuals who have been through physical challenges. One of the things I want to kind of close with is something that we talked about at the very beginning, and that was obviously most of your mission in life is to help other people be leaders, right? So they can overcome those life ambushes. And one of the things I wanted to comment is I believe, and this goes to why somebody should go for coaching like yours, I don't believe that leadership can be faked no matter what. And, my follow on from the Navy is a sales career in the financial world. And I've listened to and I've watched other people try to take stories or comments or phrases from one person and use it themselves. And it just doesn't work because it doesn't come from your core. And leadership is the same way. Like, you can say words, but if the emotion and the actual belief is not there, it doesn't do any good. I think being genuine is really important in being a leader. I believe all of us are leaders in our lives. You don't have to have people working for you to be a leader. I mean, you're a leader when you pick up trash on the side of the road and put it in the trash can, or help a disabled person across the street.
Yep.
So, man, Jay, I know for a fact that our careers are going to cross paths, and I hope that the same happens for members of my audience.
Gary, absolutely, man. So, hey, I live by a motto: lead always, overcome all. And I encourage everybody out there to do it. That's in all aspects of your life, including your finances.
Well, folks, Jay just dropped the mic, walked off the stage. So I hope you enjoyed that. And please reach out to his website. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.